In a moment, you're going to hear from a real hero, but we're going to start with a coward, me. In the spring, the LA County Parks Department put out a flyer calling for volunteers to help spend Earth Day helping with the rebuild of Loma Alta Park. It read, "Let's celebrate Earth Day by helping the Altadena Community Green and reopen Altadena Park." It offered 4 straight Saturdays in April where anyone who cared about the park could plant trees and be a part of its opening. Citizens of Altadena, just months after 6,000 houses burned to the ground, were livid. How could they ask us to volunteer when we've lost everything? This is so insensitive. Never mind that the flyer was sent countywide to all the people who asked for months how they could help our community. No, the early narrative became Barger and County are such awful people for asking this at a time when we're all suffering so much. I stayed silent. That's my biggest regret of the year thus far. Look, I'm in my early 40s. I stopped arguing with people I don't know on the internet like 25 years ago. I didn't want to get into it by pointing out simple things like A, the flyer wasn't directed towards victims of the Eaton Fire. B, the new park was going to be incredible. I had some intel on that one. Or C, holy shit, how cool is it that someone's actually building something in our community just months after the devastation? Nope. I kept my mouth shut, selfishly choosing not to engage with the Altadena outrage machine the silent majority of our neighbors make fun of when we're having real life conversations anyway. So the next part of the negative narrative was a big wave of the air quality police denouncing the park's reopening. Internet loudmouths without kids began telling parents their children would die of lung cancer if they ever stepped foot in the park. I'm exaggerating, but only slightly. Like most things on the internet, the conversation around Loma Alta Park got toxic quickly. Despite holding our collective tongues and choosing not to engage with trolls, every parent I spoke to in private was ecstatic about the upcoming return of the park. So Loma Alta Park reopened on May 17th, 4 months and 9 days after the Eaton Fire destroyed its playground, baseball field, community center, swimming pool, and gym. With the help of Live Nation and Fire Aid, the Dodgers, the Clippers, and more corporate partnerships, the LA County Parks Department was able to create the most stunning park in Southern California about 14 months faster than they usually build parks of this magnitude. I hated missing opening day. My children love that park. Xavier had his 5th birthday there. He did aftercare during his TK year at their after-school program. We had this great orientation when he went to Jackson Elementary and met a bunch of parents that we still consider close friends today. It holds a special place in our hearts. Unfortunately, we were at the Boy Scouts camp that Saturday. But after waking up in a tent just north of Ventura, the next day we headed home and we knew we had to go check out Loma Alta. We got there, you just started walking the grounds. Like I found myself tearing up. It's so beautiful. The local art, the immaculate play structure, the laughter of kids who've been displaced. It was nothing but joy in a place that hadn't felt joy in some time. Hope in a place that has little to feel hopeful about. And just everything about it is so majestic. We might have the most epic playground in America right now, just west of all of the destruction in Altadena. But it's something. We have something. We had to leave the park quicker than I wished because we were just riding a high. My kids were in heaven, but we had to race down the 210 because we had to get to Xavier's guitar recital, which is somewhere north of Duarte in a town I had never heard of before or after. And, over the next 90 minutes, about 15 to 20 kids played their song, and it was great. And some of those were our family friends, the Lewis family. And so once everything was over, I was just so giddy to go up and I told them, hey guys, we just went to Loma Alta. It was incredible. And then Mr. Lewis looked at me and goes, that's great. And he pointed his race, said, you should tell her. And I said, who's she? referring to this well-dressed woman in green whose son had just knocked out this Austin Ramones song at the recital. He goes, "She's the director of the LA County Parks and Rec." I rushed over and introduced myself before babbling about how amazed I was by Loma Alta. And to my surprise, she was very nice. She gave me some grace. She didn't look at me like I was a lunatic fanboy. It was just heaping her praise. She actually just wanted to learn more. What did I like about it? How did my kids react? Did everyone seem like they were having a good time? What started as like a quick thank you turned into this deep conversation about the community fighting to get the funds needed to build this park and the next, and the determination this woman and her staff had to rebuild Loma Alta for Altadena. 15 minutes in this conversation, it hit me. This woman is the real life Leslie Knope. For those unfamiliar, Leslie Knope is the heroine of the 2010s comedy Parks and Rec. She's played by Amy Poehler, and the character is an icon to many working women, particularly millennials. And she strongly believes in the power of government and works like a crazy person to make it work in this fictional town of Pawnee, Indiana. I think the TV show went about 5 seasons. Fantastic if you haven't seen it. And it wrestles a lot with themes around the impact of government. Like Leslie herself believes she and her staff can make change in public office. Her boss, Ron Swanson, who's hilarious, he's a staunch libertarian, and he tends to doubt their ability to actually make an impact. So one of the funny tropes of the show is how every time they try to get something done, the town crazies show up in one way, shape, or form, right? And they want to stop the ever-determined Leslie Knope in her quest to deliver. There's a nudist who doesn't understand why it's okay to not, why it's not okay to be naked in a park. They've got activists who chain themselves to a fence to protest the treatment of a miniature horse. There's a woman that insists the park doesn't have enough squirrels. And the biggest, most famous one was when a Pawnee citizen, played by Patton Oswalt, did an 8-minute Star Wars filibuster at a town hall simply because Leslie proposed repealing old, ridiculous laws, like one that stated citizens must bathe in public fountains on the 3rd Thursday of every month. While the show used this push and pull of the public not making it easy for government to work effectively, we did see a version that wasn't so funny here in Altadena. The reopening of Loma Alta continues to get flack. Other organizations complained the Parks Department didn't deserve the donations, should have gone elsewhere. Citizens screamed about the air quality, and actual human beings protested at the reopening. In the real life Leslie Knope, just like the fictional one, kept her head down and did what she knew in her heart to be the right thing for this community, even if many of its neighbors could not understand her impact. My guest today is Norma Edith Garcia-Gonzalez, the director of the County of Los Angeles Department of Parks and Recreation and the Los Angeles County Regional Parks and Open Space District. She doesn't run the Parks Department for a small fictional town in the Midwest. She oversees 183 parks for close to 10 million people across 4,751 square miles. As you're about to hear, Norma's a badass. She gets shit done. She knows how to bring together people, funds, and partners to actually drive change. She led the first successful rebuilding effort in Altadena in the wake of the Eaton Fire. She's just getting started. Norma tells a story of how the Parks Department immediately took action after the Eaton Fire, what it took to rebuild Loma Alta, and what's next for our local parks. We didn't get into her love of waffles, snake juice, or Ann Perkins, but I heard enough to know that she's the closest thing to a real-life Leslie Knope that I could ever imagine. And while the community she serves may protest what she does and make it tougher on her, she's going to come out on top. She will put in the work, and she will deliver, just like one of the great sitcom characters of this century did each Thursday on NBC. Norma may never get a hero's welcome, but her impact will be felt for decades in Altadena, long after the people that complain in Facebook groups and drive zero change are forgotten. Because as you will see, government can work for the people when it's run by the right people, the optimists that won't be held back, the achievers that won't stop fighting, the Norma Edith Garcia-Gonzalez's that will triumph over all obstacles. I'm Austin LaRoche, and this is the Altadena Rebuild, Episode 10, Parks and Rec. Norma, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Austin. It's so good to be here.
All right, so let's start at the beginning. Take us back to the days right after the Eaton Fire. How did the Parks Department interpret everything that was happening, and how did you put together a plan of action to step in and support the communities inflicted by the disaster?
Austin, I will tell you, we have an emergency command center. Every time that there is a catastrophe throughout Los Angeles County, for the most of the time, you have LA County parks that actually serve to host fire, sheriff, CAL FIRE. And at the time that the fire broke out, Farnsworth Park was actually in Altadena, was designated as a central command center. My staff immediately rushed over to our Eaton Canyon Nature Center, where we have our animal ambassadors that were there, and we have an evacuation process. We knew that it was going to be, when the fire was taken over the Nature Center, we knew it was actually bigger than we ever expected. One, we didn't save our animals, but two, we immediately started rushing over to Farnsworth Park. And you started to see that Farnsworth had been also evacuated as a central command center. You know, subsequently, we on Thursday started. Normally, our parks serve as evacuation centers. So whenever there's an earthquake, whenever there's a fire, our parks, our gyms, our community centers, we work with the Red Cross to start staging. But this catastrophe was bigger than we ever expected. And immediately the county partnered with Pasadena and everyone, the Red Cross, to open the Pasadena Convention Center. We immediately, many of our staff, we hire locally. Many of our staff lost their homes, but we started to understand the deeper impact. We saw on social media a parent posting, we lost our home, my child lost their school, and they lost their neighborhood. And Austin, many of us that are in government serve in mutual aid. I remember, probably months after Katrina, I actually went to New Orleans to do some volunteer work. What we understand from catastrophes that children are usually a lot of the collateral damage that we really don't respond to early on. And that posting by a parent was really extremely moving. And so fires Thursday, on Friday, we held an emergency meeting. Our teams were looking at the devastation of our parks. And then the other aspect of our team said, we need to show up and do better for children. We need to do better for children. We started to see that the Pasadena Convention Center was filled with families. So we brought together our staff on a volunteer basis on Saturday morning to set up care camps for children. And we had over 50 staff. We had designated a couple of parks to stand up care camps for children while parents were being evacuated at the Pasadena Convention Center, going to hotels, going to family members, to at least provide some normalcy and some support for children. And we went live at 2:00 that afternoon, and within a couple of hours, all of the care camp slots were filled. And we didn't realize how big this would be. I'll just say we contacted all of the schools. We did a massive campaign. We realized that schools were going to be out for several weeks because there were also school loss. So we decided to show up and be that interim support for children. And I know I'm taking a long time to answer this question, but I'll just say fire happens Wednesday. Fridays, we said we're going to open care camp. We initially started by training 50 staff, and then we opened our online reservation, 250 slots were taken immediately, and we said we've got to double that. We did a call for action to all the LA County Park staff. By that afternoon, we had over 100 staff volunteers. And we basically, by Monday morning, we opened 5 camps, serving over 600 youth daily. At the end of coordinating with all of the school districts, going to the Pasadena Convention Center, letting them know that we can take care of their children as parents are figuring out what they were going to do. We provided over 36,000 meals in those 3 weeks. We amassed 80 partners. The LA Phil brought their musicians to play. Mental health workers were at every care camp. We opened Descanso Garden, Arboretum, Crescenta Valley Park, Pamela Park, Arcadia Park, the Central Theater Group, LA Opera, the Dodgers Foundation. Over 80 community-based organizations came together to provide programming for children. And at the end, we served 2,700 children. We provided over 36,000 meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Our camps were open from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. We provided mental health workers at every one of our camps. And that's really, I think, what began to understand, how we began to understand and commit to such a devastating time for the community of Altadena.
Yeah, it's so funny. I feel like so many people were in that mode where it was like, how can I help? And it's very interesting to hear just how prepared you guys were right there and all the different aspects, right? People think Parks and Rec, and we know the playgrounds at Farnsworth and Loma Alta, but it's so much more. And the way that you guys were able to help in the aftermath is just absolutely tremendous. So what happened with, obviously at some point that the flames finally went out and, the smoke somewhat cleared, and it became clear that we lost Loma Alta Park, which is a staple of Altadena. When did you guys decide, okay, this has to be a focus. We need to work towards getting this thing back up, and we need to move fast?
While we were serving children at care camps, on the other hand, we were assessing the damage of our park system, and all our parks in Altadena burned. So Loma Alta, playground, maintenance shed, the Altadena Community Garden burned, but most of the structures at Loma Alta did not burn. Charles White, the playground that we had inaugurated just that year, we had just put in a new playground. The restrooms burned at Charles White. We had some burn in Altadena Triangle. The Altadena golf course, we had burned. Every building burned on the Altadena golf course. And at Eaton Canyon Nature Center, the nature center, but all 200 acres burnt. So what we immediately decided to do as well is, we were coordinating with the schools, making sure we're taking care of children. And I also just want to say that when the Pasadena Convention Center closed, we opened Pamela Park in unincorporated Monrovia to serve over 100 members of the Altadena community who still hadn't found any place to live. So for 2 weeks, we also sheltered Altadena residents. Then the community of Altadena came to us and said, our parks burned. What are you all doing? And we were like, oh. So, but we knew that was a call to action. Like, we knew parks in Altadena means so much to children and families. I also want you to know that we all know from the Paradise fire in Northern California, and there was an article by Dr. Lucy Jones, right, who basically said, in a time of catastrophe, people need hope, and children need hope. We also know that children heal through play and social connection. So, and we had worked for 3 weeks with children, and we saw the resilience. Kids came in crying, upset, and hurt. And as soon as they were outdoors at the Arboretum and with their friends, like there was smiles and there was joy. And so we wanted to do something bigger for the community of Altadena. We also felt that the leaders of the Altadena community said, we need you all, we need this hope back in our community. If we're going to rebuild, families need to know that government is going to be there for them. And so, Austin, just like we did with care camps, with 80 partners organizations, we started picking up the phone and started calling and saying, can you help rebuild Loma Alta? Why Loma Alta? Because we did a park recovery plan for Altadena, and the park with the least amount of damage was Loma Alta. So we almost did like, what park can we immediately replace? We've got a second tier, a third tier, a fourth tier, and a fifth tier. And we started calling funders, started calling friends. You know, I will tell you, the community of Altadena, we got a lot of backlash. I've never
We're going to talk about that.
But I will say to you, people that had lost their house, I had staff members that lost their house in Altadena. They were calling nurseries and saying, will you donate trees? Will you donate plants? We had the artist community. We were calling our friends and artists and say, could you, come and help us paint murals that will give joy and a sign of recovery? So this was really a grassroots effort, to get partners to donate, and people stood up. So in April, we had 4 days of service. People from all over LA County, Austin, were coming and saying, I want to help Altadena recover. I'm going to paint. I'm going to do this. I wanted to mention, so I'll stop there, but that's how we started with Loma Alta. The community came to us and said, we need a sign of recovery. And we said, we've got to be there.
Absolutely. And then, of course, you guys recognize that so many people wanted to help across all of LA County. Everyone who sees how bare the mountains are, whether you're over here in the Santa Monica Mountains and the Palisades, like you can still see that destruction and people want to help. And so you guys put out a call to arms to volunteer. And boy, did our community not really receive that message really well. I'm in marketing, so we always talk about getting the right message to the right people at the right time. Where did we mess up on that message? And because I know that it was meant for a lot more people who had not lost their homes, but kind of tell me a little bit what happened there and what the response was.
So I have a team. That's right. Care camps, assessing our parks, calling people to help. So we did a flyer that says, call to action to help us restore Loma Alta Park in Altadena. Members of the Altadena community thought that we were saying to them, come and help rebuild your park. What we were saying, because we had been getting donations, calls to help from all over LA County, it wasn't meant for Altadena residents to come out. It was meant for everybody around Los Angeles County and beyond to come and help, and it was misinterpreted. And we just, it just spread. It was like a domino effect, and we couldn't get on top of it. We changed the messaging, and we said, This is not meant for Altadena residents, for all of LA County residents to come out. I will say to you, Austin, I actually personally went to those volunteer days. And I will tell you, I am inspired by the human spirit. And I think that's what kept me, because we were getting all the backlash. It's tough to do the right thing and then constantly getting bombarded in social media and letters and phone calls about what you're doing. What you're doing is and getting negative feedback. But I want to say we had people that grew up in Altadena and moved out that came and said, I learned how to swim in that pool, and I want to make sure that the future generation can swim in that pool. Can I volunteer just to paint that building? We had churches from Compton that said, I'm not joking. They're like, we have a congregation that wants to help Altadena residents. For 2 weekends in a row, that pastor and all of the congregation came out and they were painting beautiful flyers. We had 14 artists. And, we had artists from the local community, from Greetings Tour and Eric Junker that we all know. But 2 artists became 14 artists. And then soon people are like, I want to contribute to make this park beautiful for the children and families of Altadena. So I think in retrospect, in a way to try to do something good, it amassed also, I think, miscommunication. And I think what's tough is that people are all over the place. And so we couldn't exactly call a meeting or go to the source because it just spread.
I think one of the things we keep saying is like, there's so many things that we are upset about, right? And the core thing that we're really outraged by is there's not a person we can be mad at. And so we're trying to find other people to be mad at, right? Mother Nature is unfortunately a symbol. She's not like, sitting in a mansion on Orange Grove, so we can knock on her door. There's so many people who've just been so upset by things. And I'll be honest, I had a massive amount of regret of not speaking up because I did not feel that same way. My son's 5th birthday was in Loma Alta Park. He graduated from Jackson Elementary today. They had their kickoff orientation in that park about 6 years ago. And so like that park means a lot. And, and we'll talk about how amazing it is now, but I don't feel like people like me, because that the message on the other side started snowballing and it became big and loud, and it's kind of, yeah, maybe it wasn't the best message, but like, aren't we rebuilding this park? Like, don't we all want this? And then it was like, once you guys became an enemy that everyone could be outraged by, and guess what? Going back to the marketing thing, nothing gets people all together quite like outrage, right? Outrage is very easy to feel. And especially when we're all upset about things, like there's, all sorts of ways to be upset or reasons to be upset. And you gave everybody a new one. And that I don't feel like was very fair. And, and that was just the start of the backlash, right? That was the flyer part of the backlash. And so you, persistent, move forward with the project, and you get a lot of private and public funding to set a plan to rebuild Altadena. How does that come together? Because we know obviously you guys don't have this giant fund and the help rebuild Altadena, Loma Alta fund. There's obviously so many people who have to help in both the private and public sector. How do you bring everyone together towards that common goal and make it happen?
So Austin, that's a great question. First, I started off our conversation with our care camp because that Monday after the fires, I was there at 7 o'clock in the morning greeting parents as they were dropping off their children in clothes that was big, didn't fit well because they had been sleeping at the Pasadena Convention Center. And I will tell you that our intention was, we've got to care for children in this catastrophic event. We know that these children will carry this trauma for the rest of their lives. And we, as human beings, have to, I think, need to let them know that we care about them and we're going to show up for them. So I just want you to know that's where our headspace was, being there for children. And we saw during care camp. So when we turned our attention, that was it. It was about, we're going to get Loma Alta back, because children who are living, and we're moving back into Altadena, are going every day through the burned. I mean, think about what that psyche does to a child, right? For those parents, I mean, for those kids that are living there, like, they've got to walk through their friends' houses, their neighbors' houses, their family members' houses, and see this for years. And so why we were so committed is because we wanted children to also, as they're passing by to get to their home or to shop, we also want them to turn their attention to Loma Alta and say, but there's hope and we're going to rebuild. So I will tell you, this was all, the community kept telling us I would never be persistent, and I could never be stubborn. Like, this was the community. Like, we're public servants. I manage 183 parks throughout LA County. I've got enough work. But Loma Alta, we heard from families that were still living in the community saying, help us. Now, I want you to know there's a couple of things that you should know, Austin. The senior center in Altadena burned. Mm-hmm. So seniors had nowhere to go, and they were going to the Pasadena Senior Center. But what we kept hearing from seniors were, we want to be back in our own community. 2, we heard stories, miraculous stories from like the Central Altadena Little League that used to play at Farnsworth, and coaches driving around to pick up and keep their teams together and keep their teams together. And we also heard their story. Our kids they're going to play their last games not in their home field. So you've got the seniors. We have 34 licensed childcare facilities that burned. So when you talk about, as families move back to Altadena, and there are families that live in Altadena, they still have to go to work. Who's going to care for their kids now? And then, so I just want to put that into perspective. So the Loma Alta was about giving children a place for Altadena residents, a beautiful place for children that can symbolize hope. As Dr. Lucy Jones said, we all need to focus on hope and recovery, and we need to see it, and we need to feel it, and it needs to be tangible. We also wanted to make sure that we start providing services for the community in Altadena. So, and we can talk about Loma Alta, but we called. I have a whole team that started saying, I'm going to volunteer and I'm going to call nurseries. I have another team that said, I'm going to call and, donors that have given to parks. The LA County Parks Foundation started going to Live Nation, we Dodgers, Clippers, and we started saying, could you help? And so I think another misconception is we took away money from the rebuilding effort. We went to our longtime partners to say, help us build back Loma Alta and make it better for the community of Altadena.
I think that's incredible. And I think that's one of the things that definitely gets misconstrued, that Live Nation puts together a concert and then they have a big bucket and go, well, who wants it? Oh, we think you guys should. There's work, right? There's a dedication to it, and there's an organization to it, because I think everybody has good intentions. Everybody who wished their money was going to another part of the rebuilding effort absolutely would have loved that. But when you are the people who can organize and galvanize and get that sort of funding to actually make the change, like, that needs to be celebrated. And that's obviously when, you and I met a few weeks back, when I was like, oh my gosh, this is someone I want to put on a freaking pedestal, because I'm so impressed at the work that's actually being done. Because like you even mentioned, right? Like, we want government to know that it's going to work for us. I'm glad that I know that the Parks Department is working for us, because I'm not as clear on the permitting side of the of government.
I heard they're working on it.
Everyone's trying their best. I'm here to celebrate you, not criticize them. Actually, I'm here to understand you more than that. And so I really want to kind of go back. You guys raise this money, you work together, private, public, and then you get a plan. And I just know through a mutual friend of ours who was working on the project, you got aggressive. You always had the end of May you were going to open up by. And I thought it sounded crazy when I spoke to him, and boy, you came through. So first off, how did you put together that project plan? How did you stay on track? And how did you ultimately hit your deadline and reopen the park in mid-May?
So I will tell you, usually it takes us 18 months to build a playground. And I will want to give credit to Fire Aid. All of the playgrounds in Altadena, at this point, we knew that there were no playgrounds in Altadena. And we asked for the money. We went and said, help us reopen Loma Alta for the children and families here. And then we went to our contractors and said, we said, help us rebuild. And we put it out to the universe. Half the time I was like, are we crazy? Are we crazy? But I will say to you, I had a team that said, we're going to do it. And and I will say, our contractors that did the playground, they do playground construction all over the county. And they said, we're going to put this playground first. So they put this playground first at the very top. And in some instances, they were working 7 days a week. While people were at home, in Easter, they were working. On days that it rained, they were waiting in their cars until it stopped raining. And then after it stopped raining, they would go out and do more work. We plastered the swimming pool. It takes 28 days for the replastering to actually to heal, basically to be solid enough for us to pour water in. I've never seen so many workers replastering a pool so that we can make the 28 days so that we can open that pool to provide swimming lessons for kids in Altadena. Everybody, but I will tell you, this was from the contractor to the volunteers. We galvanized around care, around showing up for Altadena, and not being government workers, but being human beings to try to give, children and families hope. And we were able to galvanize around that inspiring message we're going to deliver for this community. And before the summer, that was why was May so important? We wanted children and families to come back this summer and have beautiful green space in Altadena. We also did something kind of cool, I think, Austin. We put what we call Alta Chats. We put outdoor furniture and living room out there so that as neighbors, all of the trucks are passing by. And what we heard from families that are living on Lincoln, they're like, our kids can't go outside because of all the trucks that are which need to happen. So guess what? You can go to that park. You can now sit down. You can have, call your neighbors and have this gathering. You don't need to rent the park. You don't need to do anything. Just sit there and enjoy being in Altadena. Maybe if you're displaced and live in Long Beach and are checking up on your property and you just need a little bit of hope or respite, go to Loma Alta and sit down. And that's what this was about. This is a park that's providing that respite for those that live there, but those that just still need to have a connection to their hometown, which they love so dearly.
I totally understand. We've been doing monthly meetups with our neighborhood, and we've been doing the neighboring La Cañada, and we're
Yep.
excited because in June we're going to do it at Loma Alta. Now, with that, you've got to answer the big question on everybody's mind, Norma, because we heard on internet message boards, we heard in internet Facebook groups that the air quality is so bad that it is an absolute travesty if we send our children or if we show up to Loma Alta.
Yeah.
I assume because if you guys were to open this park and there was a health risk, that maybe we would all sue you in 5 to 10 years, that maybe you took care of a little bit of this and brought it into consideration. So can you speak to all of the work that went into testing air quality and making sure that this is a safe place to come back to?
That's a great question, Austin. And this is another thing that we just couldn't get in front of as well. First, I just want to tell you the staff that work at Loma Alta Park are Altadena residents. And first and foremost, I have a responsibility to make sure that my staff are never in harm's way, and two, that children and families are never in harm's way. My kids, I took my kids to volunteer. My kids were out there planting plants. I would never put my kid in a situation that is harmful. Public health has stated that we achieved the gold standard. And let me share with you what we did.
Mhm.
So first, before USC, before UCLA, before LA Times was testing, we had already tested. We vacuumed the ash from the grass, hired a certified contractor to vacuum all of the ash in Loma Alta Park. I also want to remind you that Loma Alta Park buildings did not burn, the playground. So what we actually did is we removed, when we possibly could, we removed all of the burnt equipment. We actually paid for it ourselves. We didn't want it to sit there and cause additional issues. The Altadena Community Garden, we, LA County Parks, through generous donations, also removed all of the burnt debris. They just got imported soil and are planting mushrooms right now, so that's also another happy note. So we actually removed everything that needed to be removed. We vacuumed the ash, and then we hired a certified contractor to test the soil. We did 25 soil borings throughout Loma Alta Park. We then went not only to our expert scientists, we have biologists on staff. But we also went to our Department of Public Health, and we immediately posted the results of that as well. So the park is clean. The park is clean. And you also know from neighbors that many neighbors have tested. We know that in some homes, they found some contaminants, but we also know that in some homes, they've cleaned up their homes and people are returning to Altadena. And so we've done all our due diligence and partnering with the agencies that also provide that oversight for us.
Can
I
you
want to
break
also
down who
say,
those? Yeah.
we planted 64 trees. We also are in the business of, we also know what regenerates soil. Actually, regenerate soil. So we've overplanted trees, plants, over 500 plants, over 64 trees, because we want to also help the air quality in the surrounding neighborhood. We're very committed to that. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, it's all fascinating. So I mean, I don't usually get into any debate that involves science. I'm an English major. I don't really care how things are made up. I just accept that they are, and I'll move forward. But I think that there is a science to it, and like science is like statistics, at least in the way of the Mark Twain quote, right? Where you can use science to your advantage in your argument, and then your detractors will use science to their argument. And I get that everybody is trying to do everything they can in the name of safety on both sides, right? You're trying to reopen a safe park and provide real hope to children, and I can't wait to dissect that in a second. But people who are more worrisome, uh, they're reading things that are scaring them. And so where's the disconnect? Where can I say, listen to the science and the people that Norma worked with, because these are the people whose livelihoods and futures are on the line if they're wrong, versus our friends in the neighborhood message boards.
So what's interesting, I think we specifically posted our results on the Department of Public Health website and not on our
Accountability.
website for transparency and accountability. I don't think anyone in the public is disputing the cleanliness. I think they're saying there's a lot of ambient and air quality. I just want to reframe that question. Should people not visit local businesses in Altadena because the air quality is bad? Absolutely not. We want local businesses. So there's a lot of people are in Altadena, the park, while there's a lot of trucks, we've created these really green buffer zones, which is why the trees are so important for any of the the ambient air. So I don't think they're disputing our facts. I think they're just saying it's unsafe without looking at the facts. But I will say to you, it is safe going to shop in Altadena, to go get a burger in Altadena, to have lunch outside at one of our restaurants, El Patron, which is next to the Altadena Triangle. You can't say the park is unsafe without saying all of Altadena is unsafe. And so I think that a lot of folks are really conflating a lot of issues. And I hope that they focus on getting factual information, because it's creating a lot of fear, and a lot of mistrust.
Absolutely. And I think that as the trucks are hopefully going to be done coming here in the next month or so, it looks like things are moving pretty quick there, that maybe those concerns will go down a little bit. I want to shift to the part that those detractors don't want to even acknowledge, which is the absolute triumph of this park. Okay, so unfortunately we had a Boy Scouts camp out. We couldn't make it on opening day, but we came the next day. And I mean, when I tell you that you guys did I don't have to tell you, you did an excellent job. Anybody who walks in that park knows you did an excellent job. The playground is the most immaculate thing I've ever seen in a playground. Beautiful. The way that you were able to make it Loma Alta, the Alta chats, being able to bring in the senior center. I didn't get a chance to see the pool yet. We had to get to that guitarist concert that I met you at. But it is so amazing. And you bring in the art and the soul of Altadena. And all of a sudden I saw my kids playing on the same playground again. And it really was, the first sign of hope is when you get your lot cleared. And this was the only other real sign of hope that we've had, in my opinion, that something is going to actually get done. And so I don't know if there's a real follow-up question other than thank you, but when did you know, as you were building this wasn't just going to be, we're going to open up a nice little Loma Alta Park. You might have the absolute best park in all of LA County now.
So I just have to say, Torrance sent me an email yesterday saying, we're hiring your playground contractor because we want to do that same play structure. I want you to know that there's no other play structure in the United States like this one. And, I will say, I know I may get criticized, but it's also accessible, inclusive, for children with all abilities.
Yes.
So I think what I'm also proud of is that it's for 8 different ages. Austin, as a dad, can also join his children and play, and we wanted to make sure that parents can join and play in a little bit of fun with their children. We wanted to make sure that children of all abilities can play in this playground. And our contractor said, we need to do a little bit of extra. We got a 40% discount. And so folks and detractors that didn't understand the details, they're saying, oh my God, they paid for a Taj Mahal. Well, first of all, if you know our track records with LA County Parks, we don't have Taj Mahals. But to goodwill private sector that said, we want to do our part and contribute to these children. And so if what I did saying yes and accepting the goodwill is I'll get criticized for, I will. I'll take it. But I will tell you, Austin, I just want to share, when we opened our senior center, the senior center room was packed. And I think you would have been emotional to see seniors. You know, seniors are in the last journey of their life, and I get emotional. They deserve to have a place in Altadena where they are cared for, they get to see their friends, and they're in a loving place. That room was absolutely packed. The Dodger Dreamfield, to see the Central Altadena Little League saying, we're back. Altadena, we're back. I mean, to have children just jumping up and down in those fields and having Dodger Dreamfields like in Altadena, I'm like, our teen center, we are, I forgot to mention, we're hiring 50 youth from Altadena. 50 youth. You know, if you remember, I remember that when I got a job as a teenager, I bought the extra stuff. Like I wanted Vans, I wanted Jordashes. We're giving 50 kids an opportunity to work at this park. So opening this park is also about employment. We have 34 childcare facilities. I just got a grant this week. I can't announce it yet, but we're going to be able to have summer camps for children at Loma Alta and Arcadia Park, which has a lot of displaced families. And we're going to serve kids with a camp experience for kids that are struggling because they're, that are displaced. We're going to have a tiny tot childcare facility there as well. I can't tell you about. So, and the good thing is also is we're partnering with Bival Coffee, who's at Prime Pizza right now. They're going to serve coffee and they're going to sell coffee out of Loma Alta. We're partnering with the Altadena Rotary so that the Farnsworth Summer Concert Series happen at Loma Alta. So families that are all over LA County can connect back with their neighbors at one of those concerts on Saturday. But hopefully that brings back joy and saying we're back and we can do this together. So there's a combination of services, but also a combination of, we want this park to serve as an inspiration. You all as community residents are going to do the hard work for the next 2 to 3 years, rebuilding a home. And so if Loma Alta can be that speck of, it's going to be hard, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We that's why we did this park, and that's why we reopened.
Awesome. Well, I think we gotta shout out our guy Scott and Rec West. We've been beating around the bush with them.
Rec West was awesome. Sorry. Yes, Rec West. I can say our contractor. Rec West was absolutely amazing. They made this happen. And because you're good people, thank you for giving them a shout out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm having lunch with Scott probably the day this goes up. So I'll let him know when to listen in for that. But they were absolutely great. And I emailed him the Wednesday of the fire. I was in the Orange County. I may have had a few adult beverages, and I was like, "We got to get Farnsworth back," because I thought that Farnsworth had gone. I didn't even know about Loma Alta, and he's right back. He was like, "Anything that we can do, we can't wait. We'll be there." And I was just because it was like the parks are just so important to these kids. And as time went on, and we understood that unfortunately Loma Alta's play structures were gone. Farnsworth, their play structures are still up, which is great, but not all of Farnsworth is. And we now know that this is a big project, the amphitheater, the community center there. And you guys are only just starting with what are the plans for Farnsworth and some of the other parks in Altadena?
So, Austin, the total damage of all the Altadena parks are over $200 million. Let me state this again, $200 million. And so if I sat there and thought, how in the heck are we ever going to get $200 million? So we're just like, we're going to go one park at a time. And we're going to go one park and we're going to chip at it, right? Because this community, if you're chipping at, communities we're chipping at rebuilding and coming back, we want to be right there with you. So I will say our next park is Charles White Park. I have good news. We already have about $3.2 million. Sorry, $3.8 million. We're $4.2 million away. This morning, I was at a Starbucks at 8:00 in the morning asking for money, and so we're rolling up our sleeves. And let me pause here. When we announced that Loma Alta was going to open, and we received a lot of hate mail, hate comments, we're tone deaf. When Steadfast pledged $30 million to reopen and rebuild the only park that burned in Pacific Palisades, unlike the LA Times article that we got, the LA Times article praised, and all of the community and the community of Palisades praised this coming back, right? I didn't get that praise, but I don't need it. And what I do want to say, we're committed to bringing back our parks, every single one of them. The next park is Charles White, but we're already working at Farnsworth. We already have our historical, architects that are looking at the rebuilding process, how much it's going to take, and we're going to start that fundraising. This last Friday, we convened to talk about the ecological restoration of Eaton Canyon, and we got a $1 million grant to do a landscape recovery center. And what is that? It's a tree farm. So we're going to stand up a tree farm at Eaton Canyon, where 2 years ago we partnered with the Theodore Payne Foundation to collect seeds at Eaton Canyon. Never in my wildest dreams, did I imagine that we would ask the Theodore Payne Foundation to give us back our seeds. We're going to propagate plants. We're going to buy and propagate trees so that we can grow them. So one day, together with the community, we can plant and restore the canyon so it doesn't look bare. So we, Austin, we've gone up to Sacramento to ask for money. We're convening a tour with our conservancies to look at resources that are available. We're gonna rebuild our parks. It's one park at a time, but we're committed. If the community's committed to rebuilding, we're committed to rebuilding the parks with you all.
So I assume once we get to Farnsworth, that's when some of the big asks are going to have to start coming. And that's harder, right? The Dodgers and everybody, when it's real fresh, everyone's like, yes, whatever we can do. A couple of years out, but we still need we need somebody who wants to have their corporate name up there, huh? All right, we'll keep hoping to get the right people there. What I mean, it sounds like you guys are doing so many things. So there's one park at a time, but what other areas does the Parks Department do that maybe those of us in Altadena or anywhere in LA County, we don't even realize all of the ways that you're helping children, seniors, you know, all of us.
I mentioned we just got a grant award yesterday. I got the call yesterday. We're working with the Pasadena Unified School District, also with the local charter schools, to offer a free summer camp for children that have been displaced and lost their homes, so that parents don't have to worry about childcare and their kids get to have a nurturing summer camp experience with trauma-informed care, mental well-being, and a lot of wonderful activities. So we're doing that this summer for children. We are, I mentioned our landscape recovery center. We also hope to get our docents back from Eaton Canyon and ask the community who's interested in watering, who's just interested in participating, to get involved. And we're going to start doing work in just a couple of months to get that recovery. We're going to need people to come and water our trees so that when we're ready to restore, we're going to have beautiful, mature trees at Eaton Canyon. What I ask is, I know that there's a lot of trauma and that there's a lot of pain. I'm hoping we can get to a point where we can all work together to restore our Altadena parks. It's going to take a lot of work. And just like rebuilding, it's not a fast. We're not on the fast lane. Loma Alta was an anomaly to show that we can get it done. And if we put our mind to it, we can get it done, and we can move mountains. We can move government. We can partner with the private sector. I think what this showed the private sector before Pacific Palisades, we opened the first park. So we're also demonstrating that government can partner with the private sector, and together we can do good things. And I'm hoping that that message can help us yield the support that we're going to need to rebuild back all of our parks.
Yeah, I absolutely think there's a silent majority of people who are much happier to have Loma Alta back, much happier to have somebody like yourself going and making real change in a community that's, not changing as quickly as, many of us want. And I think there's been a lot of conversations recently, both, at the state level, even the federal level, about making government work for people. And where is it that you feel like you're able to make an impact and make government work for people, where maybe some of the, well, let's just focus on you. How are you able to make government work for the people?
But, Austin, thank you for that question. Supervisor Barger actually put a motion in that gave the director delegated authority to streamline the recovery process for Altadena. Mm-hmm. So she put that motion in. The Board of Supervisors unanimously approved that. So what it allowed me to do is to cut the red tape. I talked about that normally it takes me 18 months to plan. And I will tell you, RecWest would tell you, like, the bureaucracy to get things done in the county is overwhelming. Supervisor Barker streamlined that for me and gave me the authority to actually move faster. I also have to say that I have the best team. I mean, many of my team members are from the local area, and so their heart is all in. So we were having strategic conversations at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. How do we rebuild back? Because we were brainstorming. It was almost like the Rubik's Cube. How do you make it all work? What do we need? And then I will also say is that we have built a lot of good relationships with a lot of community-based organizations. I picked up the call and called Daniel from Tree People. And he said, Norma, I'm in, the executive director. He said, I got some funds and I can ask my donors for trees for Loma Alta. We call the Alley Conservation Corps, who basically runs an at-risk youth training program. She said, I'm in, and And so we also are, I've also realized my lesson learned is I think it goes a long way when I pick up the phone. When I
Mm.
pick up the phone, and I make those asks, and I'm willing to do it. I mean, um, I go to Altadena all the time. Um, I there's I haven't been desensitized to the pain and to the loss. And so that pain and that loss um inspires me. I'm like, if I got to do my part. I got to do my part. And I will say to all those folks that feel like they need to make government work better, I will say that there's a lot of people that are going above and beyond to help Altadena come back. And I get to work with those people every day in my Department of Parks and Recreation.
That's amazing. I think that servant leadership is such an amazing thing to show other people and to show maybe other departments that things can work. I really do wish that we could clone you and the commissioner could do the same thing she did with you for the permitting process, and then we'd have Norma running permits, and this town get rebuilt in 2 years max. But I know that we've got to go. I could talk to you all day. Just want to say for that silent majority that is not
Oh,
yelling on message boards, that is very appreciative of you getting things done. Thank you, thank you, thank you for everything you're
oh,
doing for our community. Please keep it up. We're not as loud as the outrage people, but we are definitely appreciative, and you're actually making real change in our lives and our kids' lives. And just from
mm.
the bottom of my heart, thank you so much.
Austin, that's the fuel that I need to keep on going. So thank you. And I hope that your kids continue to enjoy Loma Alta Park and you guys get to experience joy as you go through your experience in Altadena.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time today, Norma. I
Thank you
really
for
appreciate
having
it.
me, Austin.